Alright, so we are on day 4 now. This is kind of weird. I think I set my camera a little weird. We're going to do the lining and the zipper top part today. It promises not as complicated as it looks. So we're going to start off first with your facing. So this little piece that you have right here. And basically you are going to, I personally like to measure, I say makeup, in half. So I just like to half it, which basically will be where you cut it at, but this is easier just to give you a measurement. I just kind of fold it in half, so it kind of creates this little crease right here. So then I can use my ruler. You also can measure it. I want to say it's 3, so then it'd be is it 3? No, it's 2 and 3/8. So 1 and like a quarter ish. Yep, that's about right. It's about 1 and a quarter. You're gonna draw a line down the middle, like so. And then what you will do is that you will draw a 1/4 inch down from that line, and then a 1/4 inch up from that line. Oops, I think I definitely messed it up. There we go, that's a 1/4. So you can see on my thing, ignore this little top one up here, I drew on the wrong line. But now you kind of have what this looks like, right? You could also just use this and draw out the square. And then this is 9 inches long, so then what you're going to do is you will draw a line 1 inch in. So it doesn't need to look pretty. You're not going to see it. This is just for you to basically be able to put your against. Oh my goodness, today you're going to use it to sew your box on your lining piece, on this piece right here. So it just gives you where you would sew it. So what I do is then I just fold this in half. So now there's a little nice little line there. And then I fold my lining in half so that I can see where the halfway marks are. And then you're just going to place it. So really, it does give you a measurement. I kind of just go over personal preference, which these are pretty long, actually. So I think that's good. So I would say about 1 inch down. Oh, actually I have a little more than that. So I say 1.25 inches down, or 1.5 inches down. Like I said, by all means, if you would like to use what the pattern suggests, you're welcome to do that. I just kind of eyeball mine. Actually, we're gonna go about 1 inch. So I'm doing about 1 inch because you got about 1 inch on the very top and the bottom portion. So I'm going about 1 inch down. And then my pocket should fit there pretty nicely. So 1 inch from the top, and you're going to line the very top of this up. So I can pick this up and show you. So it's 1 inch from the top of here to here. And then you'll just pin or clip in place. I usually just kind of fold mine up and use clips because I only need it there for a very brief amount of time. I also have these longer ones, so that's kind of nice. So you can use them for that kind of stuff. I think my other one is next door. You can, if you have like a friction pin or something, you can also draw your 1 inch line at the top so that you can see where exactly it's lining up. So that's totally personal preference. I sometimes just kind of fold it over like this and clip it in place. So basically all you're going to do is you're going to sew where you made this triangle. So you're going to sew down and then all the way across and back up and then back here, making sure that you back stitch because it's going to have some tension on it when we turn our bag, so you want to make sure that this is not going to rip when you're doing your stuff. So go ahead and go sew that box and then come on back. Okay, so I'm going to show you on the back side because the front side you can't really see where I sewed it, but you can see my little square here. And so this would be wrong side versus right side. Like I said, you can use your scissors. I just kind of use my rotary cutter. I'm kind of a fly-by-ear stuff. You can also measure half an inch. Here, and then you can make your little V so you know exactly where you need to cut. So you can also do this where you see I came in half an inch, and then you're going to cut it like so. You're going to cut a straight line down here, and then you're going to make a little V at the corners. Which I typically will use my regular scissors for that. Just making sure you don't snip your stitching, okay, when you're doing this. So, as you can see, I cut mine. I got the little triangles on the ends. And so now you're going to take this facing and you're going to flip it to the other side. If you have waterproof canvas, this can be a little tricky. If you're using cotton, you definitely can just take this to the iron and iron it flat. So you just kind of maneuver this to the right side. So the right side is now facing out, and the two wrong sides are facing each other. It says you're just kind of finger press this. You can also use pins, so whatever your preference is. I like to do this first, only because then I will place something on top of this while I prep my zipper, so that it lays a little bit flatter for me when I'm sewing. If you don't, and I'll turn this around and you'll be able to see. That I have a little bit of the interfacing showing on the outside. If you don't want that to show or to be able to see a difference, you just use the same material. So I'm just gonna kind of hold this for y'all, but you kind of see how this now makes a box. So like I said, I kind of put this down flat, and then I put something on top of it while I prep. You can also use some double-sided tape to hold this down. I typically will use that whenever I put the zipper on, so that it just kind of holds it so that you can kind of go flat while I prep the zipper. Right. So now again, we have the zipper. I know that there's measurements in the pattern, but what I kind of do is I just kind of use my square I made, or rectangle, I'll keep calling it a square, and then I just go about ½ inch longer on each side. I do this so that I don't have to worry about when I capture the zipper in my stuff. So you can see it's just a little bit longer on each side. And then I'm using zipper tape, so I'm going to put my pull on here. I'm sorry if you can hear my puppy crying. She's very upset that my daughter is outside, and she is inside. But Oops, I didn't catch that. I was looking for my lighter, but I seem to have put it somewhere. This one does not want to go. Oh, there it goes. So here is my zipper and my zipper pull. And so very much similar to how we did the front pocket, right? You are going to take, again, if you have any excess interfacing like I do, just go ahead and cut that off. I typically just, again, am a kind of a sloppy cutter sometimes, unless I need to be very precise, and then I use my ruler. But I just kind of use these as guiding measurements when I cut my interfacing, so sometimes they just end up a little big. I know a lot of people also will just interface before you cut, which is a super good idea, but then sometimes I feel like I waste a lot of interfacing doing that if I don't have a lot of rectangles or any of that kind of stuff, and I multi-cutted a whole bunch of patterns out at one time. So what you're going to do with your first one here is you are going to place it like so. So you're gonna put the zipper, which don't think it's weird if the zipper is as long as this pattern piece. This is also just a little long for the pocket so that you can sew it together. So you're gonna sew this like here, just straight across, and then come on back. Okay, you can see now this is on there. You now are going to take your other piece and you're going to do it exactly the same on this other side. So it will now look like this. So now you can see your pockets are right side facing, and then you're going to match up the right side and the wrong side of the zipper. So go ahead and go stitch that and come on back. Okay, so now you'll see your pocket kind of looks like this. If you wanted, you could use a little strip of, like I have this really, really thin one. It's really, really thin. DTS tape to hold down the seam allowance. You could also sew it down. You would just then see 2 lines of stitching inside of your pocket. So that really just personal preference. One thing I hate about the really thin one is sometimes it's really hard to get started. There it goes. So I just kind of pushed it down, so now you can see like my seam allowance is pushed down instead of up. But like I said, you also could just run a stitch right here. You would just see it on this side, and then when you went to stitch your pocket, you would just have 2 stitching lines inside your pocket. So that's really, again, personal preference. I just use this really thin DTS. It doesn't need to hold it down for very long. It's just so that I'm not fighting that when I'm sewing down my pocket. Right, so now you can see that these are flat, so this is going to be a little easier to sew when I go to sew this. Now I do use my bigger piece of DTS. Again, all of these are on Wizardry edition, so this is like the 1/8, this is the 1/4, and then I have a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to use the 1/4. She is very, very upset right now. So I just run 2 of these right here so it actually covers up my original stitching. And then I typically will only pull these off one at a time. Again, for your zipper pull, I know that the rule is that you want all your zippers to be going the same direction. I honestly don't think I've ever noticed when one is pulling a different way than the other. I just kind of stick my hand in the bag and call it a good day. So, but if that is important to you, just make sure, like, these are the same either way you do them. So if you put it on here like this, my zipper is now going to going right to left, and if I switch it around, it'll go left to right. I know that there is a bad etiquette about which way they go. I just don't particularly follow that very well. So I only pull off one side at a time so that I can kind of not worry about this sticking. So you just kind of line it up. Make sure you pull if a little bit is showing, I don't particularly mind. But if you don't like it showing, just make sure it's pulled really tight, or use the same print for your interfacing piece and for your lining. You also could just put a pin in here. So this is not staying down, so I actually am going to run a little piece of DTS tape right here. Like I said, I don't typically make my pockets like this. I have with some patterns that call for it. It's mostly for like cork bags that basically have a raw edge for the square. Is the only time I really ever made one like this. But I figured I'd give it a try since it is in the pattern, so I could show y'all. So like I said, the DTS just kind of holds it in place. Even if you only put it on one side, it was just hard to keep it from flipping up on me when I was trying to do this part. Actually, I'm just going to go and run both. Sorry guys, I know I'm being complicated. I have a Sailrite, so my needles are pretty big, and I use Tex 45, so it will sew through this DTS tape like butter. So I'm not too worried about having the multiple pieces, but obviously if you have a machine that doesn't do that, you can utilize some of the other ways I said to do it with pins or etc. Oh yeah, so much better. Just kind of lay that flat, kind of make sure that it's kind of squared up the way I like it, which it's not. So that's the fun part about this. You can kind of just adjust it till it fits the way you would like it to look. I am not the best welt pocketer, but majority of bags do call for pockets like this, so you just practice, practice, practice. I used to just wing mine, so it was not always the prettiest thing. But then I got turned on to the DTS tape, and that makes it way easier to make it pretty nice. Alright, so now you can see I have my pocket on here, and so you're just going to sew again a rectangle just around here. Your pocket is going to stay flat like this, so just make sure it doesn't move or get bunched up. You want it to be flat and open just like this, as you can see, and then here is the other side. So just go sew, make sure you top stitch, make sure that your zipper pull is inside of your rectangle before you close it up. I like to leave mine, and then when I get almost all the way done, I push it inside and then stitch this last little piece. It just makes it a little easier to keep everything fairly straight. But again, personal preference, you also can just move it out of your way as you see fit. So go ahead and do that and come on back. So now you can see this is my pocket all sewed down, and on this other side you basically are just going to push this down like so, and you can see that you have some excess on the end. All right, so just like our front pocket, you can see how you have some decent amount of excess here. You're just going to do the same thing as you did before. Like I said, you can measure it and cut it, or you just can kind of make it even with the other one. So now my pockets are, oops, that's still a little long. Okay. Now you can see that my pockets are even. It's basically going to be out of my seam allowance now. So pretty good, right? And so now what you're going to do is do what you did earlier. So very, very similar, except for at the bottom here, you're not going to sew the bottom closed. You are going to push it back about 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, whatever your seam allowance, depends how close when you close your pocket. This is so that whenever we finish this bag, or when we're finishing it, and you sew the top part together, you can then flip it through here. So you can see, oops, there's a little too much on that side. I just kind of have 1/4 inch on both sides. You are also welcome, what some people do is they stitch a little bit here and then go down. I prefer it like this. I feel like it gives it a better closing and also gives you a better opening with no chance of it basically busting open. So now you're just going to sew down. So you're just going to kind of move this out of the way like so, and you're going to run a stitch from here all the way down on both sides, so that basically you're closing your pocket. You can, another reason why I like to leave my zipper a little long, I definitely do stitch through my zipper so that it just kind of gives it another layer of protection of your zipper not coming out when you're pulling this. So just stitch from here and then just stitch straight down on both sides. Right, so here you are. So you can see if I were to unzip this, I'd be able to have this nice beautiful pocket in here, but you see it comes out my hand, right? Because you want this, you want the opening to be there. So just give it a couple, zips back and forth, make sure it unzips, make sure that this is pretty sturdy. I do trim mine down a little bit on the sides, but that's just because I don't like to end up catching it in my seam allowance. So that's also personal preference. I typically cut it with 1/2 inch and then I just kind of cut it down. You could just cut it smaller, which would also be okay. I just keep coming up. There we go. So again, that's all just personal preference on how you like it. All right, so now on to the part I'm sure everybody is dreading. What I promise you is not that hard. I'm gonna go ahead and back the camera up just a little bit, hopefully. So, again, I already have my prepped zipper. Again, there is measurement in the tutorial if you wanted to follow that, but I cut mine about right at 12, which I think is what was in her thing. I kind of just lined it up with this and then saw what I had excess. She does tell you to put this end piece on. I am not doing that because I like to pull it a little bit. But what you're going to do is you have your piece right here, and you see how one side is shorter than the other. You want to measure 2 inches from each of the short sides in, okay, on both your pattern pieces. I don't know if you can see mine. You can see a little brown nick there, and a little brown nick on this other side. Oh, there it is. That's going to help you line up where your zipper is going. Okay, again, decide which way you want this to go. Mine is going this direction, which I do believe is going to be the same as my other piece, as you can see, but that honestly is just kind of luck. And so, in her tutorial, she tells you how you can pull this. You can pull this like so, and then she hand sews this down. So by all means you can do that, but basically this is going to cause a little pinch here. That's all it does. So you could even use your regular sewing machine and just kind of stitch right here. I don't do that. Whenever I do mine, I just kind of pull this and then sew down that way. So again, that's all again personal preference, but you're going to line up this first one like that, right? You're going to just pull it a little bit. I like to extend mine just a little bit farther, and then you can see where my bend is. Mostly because anytime I've tried to do it where you sew it down, it didn't ever work for me, so I just don't do it that way. And then right here on this end, you are going to just kind of fold. So I've never done it this way, so again, we're going to follow how she did it. And I actually do kind of like it. So when you get to the other 2-inch end, you're going to bend this so that your zipper just kind of falls into your bag. Hopefully you can see this. You're going to see like where this little bend is, and then that's where my other 2-inch mark is. Other people I have seen, you just kind of do this. You just kind of move it out of the way a little bit. But she definitely does have you do a slight bend in it right at that 2-inch mark, which is kind of nice. So we're going to give that a shot. Again, when you do these, it is going to be, the zipper will be right side against right side. So you're only sewing in between these 2-inch marks, where these 2-inch marks are. That's it. Do not sew past that. I mean, obviously you're not really sewing anything, but just make sure that you have your zipper down into your thing, like so. Okay, so go ahead and just do a little light stitch right along there and come on back. Okay, so now you can see how my zipper is on there. And you have a little right here, so not showing. And so now you're going to take one of your lining pieces, and you basically are going to sandwich this on here. You definitely can find the halfway marks, but honestly it should match up. So you can just pin this in place. Again, making sure that your zipper is down in the bag. So now you can see my zipper is sandwiched in between here, like so. So go ahead and you're going to sew with about 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and you will start from from one end to the other, making sure you back stitch. So go ahead and do that and come on back. Okay, so now you can see my zipper is nicely in there. This will keep it from going anywhere. And then this side, I do kind of like this. You can see a very slight bend here. It just kind of makes this droop into the bag, which is what you want. You hide this whenever you do things. So now all you're going to do is repeat this for, you're going to top stitch this. So you're going to push your seam allowance up towards this piece. And you just make sure that you push all of this up and you catch the lining. So you're just going to go ahead, and you can see I really like where I put my zipper. It's nice and near the top, but not so close and not too far. So I really liked where I ended up putting it. So that was an inch. But yes, go ahead and top stitch this, and then repeat the exact same steps for the other side. And then I will be right back. So my other video got cut off, but I did notice it before I just started coming back, so I did finish this up. My zipper, so you can see top stitched on both sides. This curves in. I really do like how she did her zipper. Even if yours is like just a tad bit off, like Mine in here is just a little baby bit off. It's not even really noticeable. And when I push it down, it's basically lined up exactly the same. So just something I noticed. So with her method, I would just have to work on that a little bit. It's not going to hurt my bag or anything. But you can see how it's top stitched down here. So basically all you're going to do now is put these right sides together. So they should be pretty simple, right? They should match up. They do not have side panels like the front does, or the exterior does. Again, like I said, I'm kind of a bad cutter, so my bottom part's off by maybe 1/8 of an inch. That's not a huge deal. But like this side actually lines up perfectly. So if yours is a tad bit off, don't worry, you didn't do something crazy. I mean, if it's way off by like a lot, that's a little different. But a little bit of 1/8 of an inch, that is not a huge deal. I can see how my top ones, they're just a tad bit too long. So I'm just going to trim that up to match. There we go. That looks nice. That just happens, like I said. So here is it. Together you're going to sew down this side and then this side. And make sure on your little curves, if you remember on the pattern piece, it had a little where it went, you don't have to make really sharp ones, but make sure you go with the piece where it goes here and then that way and then down. You don't have to, like I said, make a big pivot, but do kind of curve with the lines that are here. So go ahead and sew down both sides and then come on back. Alright, so as you can see, I got my sides sewed down. Let's kind of look. I feel like this is pretty lined up pretty good, so I kind of really like that. And same my other side. These line up really well. This is all evened out, so it's nice and square now, which is good. So now you're going to repeat what you did with, let's see if I can pop this up a little bit. Oh, you're going to see more of my face now, but sorry. So that you can see maybe a little better when I hold this up. So this is going to be very similar to what we did to the exterior. So you're just going to quarter this bad boy. Just little snips in there. Like I said, it's going to be exactly like how we did the exterior when we did this. All the same methods still apply. Like I said, you're welcome to use staples or clips or pins, basically whatever you're comfortable with. You can also, if you want, put a little basting stitch where the seams are, kind of like what we did for our strap when you basted the seams in place, mostly so they wouldn't be bulky, because you do want to spread these open when you sew this so that it's just not such a bulky seam. Same thing for the top. So if you wanted just to push these seams out like so and just kind of baste them in place, you definitely could do that. Like I said, just finish, which I did, and then match them all up again like you had before. So take this and just match up your 4 ones that you made before you start to ease the, I broke that one. I really hope y'all do enjoy my sew along, even though I definitely sew like I do not have my shit together. This is basically me all the time. I just kind of I actually have to think about how I'm going to sew for y'all, because I just kind of do it. I do a lot of things on autopilot now. So then I'm like, oh, how did I actually do that? Let me show them how I did this. So I do appreciate all of you that are participating and putting up with my ridiculous shenanigans. And I really hope you enjoy sewing with us. I do plan on doing these more. I haven't done them in a while actually. So I broke that one. I'm running out of clips again because they're all over there by my actual sewing machine. I personally think sewing the exterior around is easier because this stuff is so slippery and moves so much more than your exterior. Alright, so again, you can see I have it in the round. I'm using clips. Then once I clip and I make sure that is exactly where I want it, I then do use my stapler. Also to note, I know like in a lot of patterns, you sew the slightly bigger seam allowance to have the pattern fit snugly, and to have the lining fit snugly in the exterior. But for this pattern, you do not have to do that. It is already cut in such a way that you are still just going to sew with 3/8 of an inch. I don't know why one side is always easier for me than the other, but it definitely is so. So you can see I just kind of stapled all the way around this. I'm pretty sure I use more staples than you actually need to. But I do put them kind of just 1/4 of an inch in so that I can cut them out. So now you're just going to go sew this in the round. And so go ahead and do that and come on back. Alright, so as you can see, I have this sewed all the way around. Ignore my strings here. And then now you're just going to cut down your seam allowance to about 1/4 of an inch. Just make sure you don't cut through your stitchings. Like I said, I try to make sure I can get all my staples out. Sometimes I have like a few that are just a little too close, so I'll just hand pull those out so I don't cut too close to my seam allowance, but for the most part I can just cut all of my staples out. It's just a nice way to hold your stuff in place. So you don't have to, so your things don't slip, especially in a circle. When things are squares, I'm not too worried about it. It's pretty easy to hold things in place. But when things are in the round, it definitely can get a little tricky to make sure all your stuff is held into place. I think I only got... I honestly just use my scissors. I just use the little piece and just kind of flick them out like so. Because I mean, this is a magnet, it sticks to it, it's good. Make sure you know when you cut your staples, you didn't actually leave a little piece in there like I did with this one. So I just take it out. There we go. So now we're good to go. And so now you are going to, just make sure all your seams are trimmed. Everything looks nice. Looking really nice. I like it. It didn't catch my pocket seam in anything, so that's good. So now you're just going to push this to the right side out. So you just push it real good if you want to make sure that your bottom part looks good. I find looks pretty good. You can take a little look. Like I said, I didn't put. You don't necessarily have to push it all the way out, because it's going to go into your other bag tomorrow. So just kind of make sure everything looks good. So everything so far is looking pretty good. So just go ahead and come back tomorrow and we can finish this up. All right, well, I'll see y'all mañana.